session because of, well, we've been in budget year now about 3 months. And, you know, pulling along the first 3 months, we wanted to be able to review how we've done and where we are right now, because it's going to help us know where we need to go going forward. And like Rosenwig brought up the conversation a couple of meetings ago, that if we're going to make any adjustments to the budget, we should be doing it now and not wait till the second or third quarter to try to make last-minute adjustments. And because we weren't really involved in the budget process, and Dave was, along with the mayor, the budget was presented to us, we wanted to get more familiar with. And that's why we called the meeting tonight. So I'm going to speak for the aldermen, because we've all come to we've called the meeting because of the work we feel like we need to do on the budget. But this meeting is not really about making any changes in the budget. It's not about questioning anybody's cost or anything like that. The whole idea of this is to assess our situation, find out where we are, so that we can plan on how to go forward. So it's not to call anybody to anything but to report where we are here at this time. So we have such a big area to talk about. You know, we have things divided into streets and cemetery, and we have water and sewer and all these other departments. We feel like this meeting is the first of maybe 3 meetings of work sessions of collecting information. We don't want to keep everybody a long time tonight. That's why we call the meeting at 5 o'clock. We know it's dinner time and you want to get home. So we thought that we would review and the water sewer area, and specifically this would be the first area that we'll talk about, and mainly this area tonight. But you know, our wholesale water purchases and their rates associated with our revenues that we collect from residents, and the usage that we have, and any shortfalls we have to the budget. Water is one of the biggest things that we have to work with here. It's a brand new system. We have qualified employees running the system, but there is a cost involved in actually operating the water department. So we have purchasing of the water, and then we have selling the water, and then we have collection of the water, and then we pay our employees to operate the water plant. And so we need to better understand where we are as far as the cost goes. And I know that we've called you, David, in to help us understand where our costs are. And I asked earlier, we've asked in past meetings that we would have some information here that might help us. But really, we're just going to be assessing our situation now with water, sewer. And we're all going to ask questions if we have any questions. It's not for me to ask all questions. But we do understand that at a couple of meetings and some past meetings that we've missed, that there was a water rate increase. Was it last year, before this last increase?
As far as us increasing the rates?
No, increase on us.
Oh, on us?
Yes.
Oh, the last 2 Januaries, they raised it $1 each thousand.
Okay. And we do, I think I understand, I'm not quite sure, that rate increase last January was not charged to the residents of St. Mary's.
No.
Okay. And that's caused us to have a shortfall. So, but let's define that better. This rate increase didn't have to do with all the gallons that you use as a resident, but just your first 1,000 gallons. Is that how that went? Or is it for all the gallons?
No, it's every 1,000 gallons that we purchased. It went up $1 last January. It went up another $1 this January.
So how does that work out as far as revenue goes? How much more? I mean, cost goes. I mean, how much more do we spend?
When it raised last year, I looked at how much usage we had for the year, and that was going to cost us an extra $7,000. Okay. And so this increase is going to cost us another $7,000.
Okay. So that was only due to the increase then, that $7,000.
Correct.
The wholesale cost.
Yeah, I just took our usage and figured out, you know, what that extra $1 would be.
And so as we were reporting this year, we came into our first quarter saying we had a shortfall, and we had to take some money to make up that shortfall for purchasing wholesale water.
Oh yeah. On the profit loss, you'll see.
That's okay.
It's all right here in these papers if you would have.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. There's a lot of papers that get passed around here. But I think sometimes it's better just to talk about it here. So this $7,000 that we didn't increase last January caused us to have a shortfall this January, and now we're facing another increase this January. And if we don't increase the rate on the residents, we'll have a larger shortfall. And as we go into these shortfalls, where are we getting our money?
I'm transferring money from general into water and sewer. On water the last fiscal year, I transferred $79,000 or $7,990, and on sewer, I can transfer from general into sewer, $19,792. So general's putting money into water and sewer.
Sure. So I think what we're thinking is a responsible board and of aldermen to the citizens of St. Mary's that we're so proud to be able to and honored to represent here, is to try to bring these costs involved in buying the water into some kind of balance with the purchasing of water and the sale of water, so that we don't have to dig into these funds that we might want to use for other things and that we might be more important to use. You know, at the beginning of this year, we wanted to work with a budget to perhaps put some things in for beautification of this town and to making things a little better on our streets. But we can't do that if we keep borrowing money out of our general fund to balance the water budget. So part of the evening tonight is to find out those things that we need to really look at, so we can take that back into a session where we can talk about how can we better harvest this money so that we won't be short and we won't be digging into general revenue. So we haven't increased the rates for 1 year, either the first rate last January or the new increase this January.
Right. That was then raising the rates on us.
And this is averaged about $2, did you say?
Yeah, it's $1 every 1,000, and they've done it twice.
So now if we increase the rates on the residents here by those $2, we still wouldn't cover our shortfall?
I'd have to do the math on that.
That's what our work session will be about after gathering information.
Right.
How do we do that? How do we approach the shortfall? We have to be responsible to, is it the Missouri Rural
Water Association? They're the ones that did the rate study like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They said that we should raise our rates by like 74%, and that study's in your packet there.
Sure.
Instead of raising 74%, the Aldermen, raised it 5%, and then after that, then Public Water District raised the rates on us, $1 and then another $1, and the numbers we have here do not reflect the new dollar increase, so these numbers are gonna get worse, so it's hard to project, we can kinda estimate, what we need to do.
So you can understand our concern as a board of governors for the city, or a board of directors, or, aldermen of our city, that we have to look at our citizens in the face and say, we're facing these increases, and we can no longer just absorb them, because at some point we have to pay the price, or we can't whistle past the graveyard another year. So you can see the importance of us wanting to get into more detail about this, David. We're going to need you because you are the professional, and you have the skill set, and you've been working with these budgets, and you know those numbers really well. But when we get into another session, a work session, when we want to better define what we might want to do as far as our rate's concerned, we need some pretty hard numbers that we can identify, and then we want to be able to put them in our next year's budget. So what we're working on now is what we didn't do last year, and what we may not do this year, but somewhere along the line, if it's not 6 months or a year from now, we need to have a new budget that produces more of a balance, and that's really what our goal is. So that's as far as you know, as far as wholesale cost of water and retail sale of water and our shortfall.
Right, and the thing is, what I have here is like all the raw numbers, like how much water that we're selling, in gallons, and how much money we're taking in for that, how much water we're purchasing, how much that's costing us, how much we have to pay in the bonds. What I can try to do is to take our shortfalls from this fiscal year and basically double those, because we're gonna be another $1,000 or another $1 rate increase on us, and then try to figure out raising, how much we would have to raise water and sewer to just break even.
Right, and now, we know that we need to be able to work with that number, and that we may not increase our rates in the city by that number. But we'll come as close to it perhaps 1 year and then to a second year to try to accomplish that somewhere along the line, so it won't hit everybody necessarily hard. And we didn't really want to get into that solving the issue tonight, but we want to identify that, and I want you to better identify that at our next meeting.
Okay.
So is it a definite every year in January, from now on, every January hike it up another $1?
Or do we not
No.
know?
Or do you even know that?
No. I mean, I've been here like 5.5 years, and they never increased the rates until last year. They hit us with $1, and then they did another $1 this year. So I would hope they're not gonna do another $1 next January, but I don't know if that's up to their board.
Well, I think that they have to do it for particular reasons, needs, and we're very lucky to have good, clean water here in this city, and and a resource and a place to buy it. I think all of us want to have water, we wouldn't want to not have it. But the numbers that we have here in front of us tonight don't necessarily do us any real good, except it's nice to have them, you know, dollar-wise and metered water-wise. But eventually, we're going to have to get into a finite increase that's going to cover those costs of purchasing. And so does anyone have any more questions about this particular thing, wholesale costs versus retail costs, shortfalls that we might have? Do you have any? Okay. So the other associated part of the water issue here, and cost involved in that, is our labor cost as far as managing the water sewer system, and how those responsibilities fall upon our employees, and what policies and procedures do we have in place to manage these employees so that we can meet a fixed labor cost that's going to help operate our water, because that cost is going to have to be figured in somewhere, general revenue, labor cost, or water revenue. So I want to be able to better define, that's why we ask for who is involved in our water sewer as far as our employees go, how much time is dedicated to water sewer, and what are the specific responsibilities, and what are the procedures, and what are our policies. You clock in and you work 3 hours a day on water, and 2 hours is over here mowing, and so much is over here, or do we just do it in general? Because we don't have a city manager, and we have a mayor that's busy operating, you know, does a great job as mayor, and we're all citizens and we're working our jobs, but we don't have any place for these people to report to that I work 3 hours with water today and 2 hours with. But is there a way to better define how much our city employees work in the water department?
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah, please do.
When they're mowing, they bring the card and put mowing on it, don't they?
Right, but
Yes.
when they turn in their time cards, they also turn in a time sheet.
Yes.
And that time sheet,
What they're
they
doing
break
every
down by
time.
hour,
Good.
how many hours they did on buyouts, on
Yeah.
general, on water, sewer, park,
It's all
cemetery.
itemized
It's all
out.
broke down, you know, and what they're doing.
Well, in order to raise the rate to cover the cost of operating this water sewer plant and buying the water wholesale and selling it and doing all the other things, we need to attach a labor cost to that. Because when we talk to our residents about a water rate, we want to tell them what's involved in that rate, so that everyone can better understand why we're raising the rate, or why we might need to, or maybe we don't next year, because there's no increase.
No,
How much money you think we lost on leaks? Where-
Right, well, we're getting there.
Yeah.
So,
How much you think we lost on that?
yeah, so we're gonna get there, because, and let me proceed, if you don't mind, Mayor.
Okay.
Because that's a very good question. It's probably one of the best questions we have here, because we know that we're taking in so much, and we know we're selling so much, and then there's a difference. And that difference we need to try to define. And I understand that's kind of elusive, but,
There's a loss, correct?
yeah, that's all. Well, we're paying for it, right? We're paying it
Yes.
wholesale,
Oh, yeah.
but we're not selling it retail. So, let's go ahead, since we got on this topic. It was the last thing I was gonna talk about, but about the water. These people that run our water department are pretty well-trained people, right? We've said.
Oh, yeah, they go to classes and they're required to have licenses. One of them has a license to operate the water side, and one of them has a license to operate the sewer side, and that's required by DNR, otherwise we're out of compliance and they fine us, and, yeah.
Their knowledge is gonna be very valuable to us as far as the difference between purchasing the water and selling the water, and where it's going in between. And so somewhere along the line, during these work sessions, we're going to need to talk with our water people that have been trained to manage this water system, and talk to them about the water. Now, I understand sewer is a different, I really want to talk about sewer as something different right now, not necessarily water, although I do know there's an bills attached to it. So I've heard all types of numbers about leaks and waste and all those things. I think that if you were to go to St. Louis and talk about water revenues per wholesale and retail, you'll find that there's a loss too somewhere along the line. Because nothing is perfect, the lines aren't perfect, and we have old plumbing, but we actually are pretty lucky, we have some pretty new plumbing in some areas. But meter-wise, what goes in that tank and comes out of that tank should somewhere come in with some type of balance. And we were discussing that if we purchase 1,000 gallons and we sell 800 gallons, but we have to fill up another 1,000, where's that 200 gallons? you know?
Oh, yeah.
So we need to better define how that float's operating in our tank, you know, when they fill us up, and see if we can get our arms around that. There's nothing that we're gonna continue to buy that water, but we need to identify that 200 gallons. It could be 30,000
So
gallons.
to speak,
Yeah. So in the next meeting, when we bring along these numbers that you're going to work on, labor costs associated with water, you know, labor, how much we're donating, how much we're dedicating to our employees as far as the water department goes, we do need to look at, we're gonna bring those men in or women, and we're gonna talk about what their idea is about this water difference. I mean, they're there working every day, not that they would necessarily know, but we need to bring them in and get them involved in the next meeting. So, so then we have collection of the water bills, and we have a collector here. And the collector is paid to, we have somebody that's reading the meter, that's the city employee. So we purchase it wholesale, we've sold it retail, we've gone out and won it, we know how much people use, and then we bill it, and we collect it, and we deposit it in the bank. And there's a person there that does that for us. How much of that work that's involved with that person is associated with water and not general revenue collecting taxes and doing all the other things that that person does? Is it 75%, 50%, you know, or whatever? And I think that might be an area that we want to discuss as far as cost involved in operating our water, purchasing our water, and accounting for our water, and billing for our water. We have to have.
I have no idea how it's broken down there, because I'm.
I don't either, but
Yeah.
she's a city collector, she's an elected official.
Right.
The city actually doesn't pay her.
Oh, I
A
think so.
percentage for doing the water bills is
Right,
what
Right,
she
she's
gets
not
paid.
considered an official employee, but
That's
she's an
right.
elected official, but she gets 6% of what she collects, with the exception of what's direct deposited, which is the gross
Yeah.
receipts and other things,
Right.
she does get a percentage of that. We
It
run
is a
through payroll,
percentage.
right,
Why is that?
Um,
Why is that?
the collector's always been an elected position since the beginning of the city.
No, the percentage. Who
The
sets that?
percentage was, the current percentage of 6% was done in the 90s, because we looked it up this week.
We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about how our system works, and we're going to look at the big picture. How much we may need to raise our water rates. We may need to. We may not need to. We may decide to. We may not need to. But we need to know all the costs involved in running our water department, and so the collector is part of that, and it's okay with us to pay a collector. You know, I mean, all the employees are paid, but we just want to know what the money is associated with that. And you're saying it's 6% of the water. Now, I'm sure that the collector collects taxes and other things that we don't want to know about that. We just want to know water. And I saw that you had a form down here about with that, and that's good. But we want a more comprehensive water sewer report. That wouldn't be something that we report on all the time. It'd be something to help us work out what we need to do for a rate increase. And show that our residents are due diligence in trying to find out exactly what it's costing us, exactly what our losses might be, and exactly why we need to raise the rates the way we need to raise them. But as far as I think we're thinking, we're gonna have to have some kind of rate increase. We can't go without one because we're only gonna have so much savings and so much general fund. And if we're gonna do anything else in the city, we need to plug the hole. But that's for us to discuss later. So policies and procedures are the last thing that I want to talk about, unless y'all have a question about usage. That's water between what we're purchasing, what we're selling, and what's in the middle that we don't have accounted for. Or collection of the water. Because the last thing that we need to know, Dave, is the policies and the procedures on maintaining the water department. We have well-trained employees. An employee comes in, and what does that employee's job consist of when he's managing the water tank of the water department? What does he do in the course of a week or a month? Which is probably a lot. But we needed to define, we need a job description, is really what we need to have. Now, I'm almost through with the water thing, but overall, our city employees do a lot of things. And when I first moved here, it was nothing to drive down the road and see a city employee painting the door on the city hall, or working on something down at the park, or trimming a limb off of something that was falling on a sign. So they have all types of responsibilities. I want to know what their responsibilities, you gotta get it?
You want a break?
Sure.
It's probably,
Why aren't you home, honey?
one of the many handouts I gave her today.
Yeah, you didn't go fast enough.
So David, we know that these employees that we have that are good employees, that work for our city for a long time, are trained now. And we know that they have other job responsibilities. But I want to know how much of their job responsibility during the course of a week or a month is dedicated to the water department, water sewer. And that's going to help us plan a little bit better on our rates and bringing things together for the water.
But that's gonna be pretty hard for them to do.
Right?
What if 3 grinders break down within that week? They don't know if they're gonna break down or not.
Right.
Yeah, but you can have a general,
Well,
what
look
they
at-
normally would do.
Looking at like
Go
the
ahead.
year,
Yeah.
like in this, profit loss, this is for the fiscal year, last year, it's got how much the collector made,
Yeah.
how much the employees cost, the labor cost, so a lot of the numbers are right
Oh,
here.
they're all here, what he's wanting here, probably.
Yeah, I mean, and the other stuff, I got the general profit loss here too, if you want to see
Yeah.
that, but,
So-
I got just the water sewer for tonight.
I think if we're gonna manage our water department, and which we've been doing a good job of, we need to get our arms more around what the specific duties are as they're associated with the operation of the water plant and the sewer department. And those employees can help you because you can ask them to write all those things down. But once we get a list of what all those things are, we can dedicate so much of their time. A lot of as I was looking at our budget, we have no overtime because we allocate this overtime in some kind of way that I've never heard of before. And this type of overtime, to me, is something that can't be cumulative, because eventually we won't be able to afford that overtime. So if we can't afford the overtime necessarily during the work week, but we're going to, what do you call this overtime that we pay?
Well, if they work over their 80 hours for 2 weeks, then for every hour they work over, they get they get an hour and a half worth of comp time. And that comp time builds up immensely on the city,
I understand.
It's in here
on the,
too.
yeah, like one employee has like 515 hours of comp time built up, which represents $6,500. Another employee has 611 hours of comp time, which builds up to over $7,000. So, and the IRS does not like this. They
Good.
see this like
Well,
hiding income.
Let me ask this question then. Does this comp time have to be used in the course of a year and then it's washed clean and then you start fresh the next year, or is this accumulating for the next 10 years?
QuickBooks has no way to differentiate vacation time from comp time. Vacation time is a use it or lose it thing, and they take off enough time where they are using their vacation time. Comp time does not expire, because that's basically overtime money that they've earned. Just waiting for it to take off.
I'm aware that comp time is a big amount of money, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay it or whatever, but I'm saying if it's associated with the water department in any kind of way, we need to take part of that comp time and put it over into our labor of our water department. So if these employees are working mostly, say for example, our 2 employees that we have here spend most of their time operating the water department, more than 50% of their time operating the water department, then about 50% of their comp time could be water department related. For example, if they're working on a grinder on a Saturday or a Sunday, you've got a water leak someplace, or some of the guys going out, he's not getting paid overtime, he's getting comp time, but he's working on the water. That's a water expense. And I know that we're not really majorly high tech, but we're really trying hard. We're going to work hard as a board to get our arms around the total cost of this water sewer operation. It has been done in the past. We're in a new year now. We're in a new budget year. Things are different now. Water costs a lot more. We have a water system that's in place here. And we need to know how to forecast a 5-year plan. We don't want to be operating our city hall and our city on a year-to-year basis with our budgets. We want to know 5 years from now how much this water is going to be costing us if we can, and project those costs so that when we do have an increase in taxes, we can justify why we have a 1% increase and why we need you to vote on it. Because $12,000. And, you know, so, so all we're asking tonight is that we focus on water and sewer and all the associated costs. And that includes any shortfalls as far as, you know, water that we can't account for. But, and I know that there's no such thing as work sessions as necessarily water participation, but here's a man who's worked here a long time. But I've heard all kinds of numbers about the difference between what we buy water and what we sell water for and what we're actually, you know, and I've heard it's as high as 20,000 or 30,000 gallons a month. Is that close to anything like that, do you imagine, or?
As far as like our water loss,
Yeah,
the auditors say that 10% water loss is typical for most cities. Right now, we're at about 12 to 15% water loss.
okay.
But you have to look at it over several months, and because we don't have a meter at the water tower. And last month, we actually sold more water than we purchased. So, because the tank was full or whatever, and so it's, you can't go by just one tank, you gotta look at the whole year, basically.
And part of the comprehensive solution to finding out exactly what these things are, it might be that we need to have a meter on that thing to find out what those things are. I'm not saying, that wasn't supposed to be our discussion tonight, but those might be some of the things that we plan on doing. But what we want to do, Dave, within our next session is focus again on this water sewer with more finite detail in the areas that we talked about, so that we can get our arms around the rate increase that's probably going to need to be passed along to our residents. And we want to be able to justify that. We want the mayor proud of us for doing our work. She's got to stand behind the brunt of any increases that we have. And, but we want to have our T's crossed and our I's dotted and pretty much understand completely what's going on. And, now Cody is with the,
He's over water.
he's over water. So, and hopefully he'll be able to make it to the next meeting. But if you have any questions about finding out or anything like that before our next lesson, call me and we'll talk about it. But I think we should set a date for our next meeting for our rate.
But did you know there was a water leak today, it's done been fixed? Nobody knew about it, except me, and I told them to fix it.
Oh, good. So,
Couldn't get a hold of them.
so anyway, this is a big part of our budget, and I appreciate y'all coming in tonight at 5 o'clock to discuss this, but at our next meeting, we need to take some of this information and work it into more of a graph to know where we are this year and what we need to probably do this year. And we'll be talking about, if we're using 4 or 5 grinders a year, 6 grinders or 10 grinders, we need to start putting those 10 grinders in our budgets in advance, so that next year, if we use 10 grinders and repair 10 grinders this year, we'll probably repair 10 next year, and we need to put that kind of cost in our budgets going forward. That type of approach, so.
Did you want to set a date for the next?
Yes.
Okay.
So what is, and you're so involved in this at this point, being the person that's worked on our budget, I would appreciate you taking the time to do the extra work.
Oh, yeah, no, you know, what I'm gonna have, it wouldn't be too hard, because, I mean, all the numbers are here, but
Yeah,
they're
you
so,
already got it done.
well, but they're so scattered about, I need to make it where I can put like, the important information on one page.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can do that, David, I've seen it work, and I appreciate what you brought here. We're gonna put this in our folder and keep that, but, we wanna do, we're at the 3rd month of October, November, December, we're into our 4th month of our budget year,
Right.
January. Let's try to make a goal that by the time we're finished with our 2nd quarter of our budget year, that we've got something, armed around something, which will mean that we need a couple more meetings. We could do another meeting in February sometimes if you like, the middle of February, after our next board meeting.
Our next board meeting is the 2nd Thursday, which is, February 14th.
I have,
Valentine's Day.
and I won't be here, we won't be able to do it that day because I had conferences.
Oh, okay.
Can we do it the Wednesday, 13th?
Yeah, I mean, that's our regular meeting, I mean, you wanna do a
Another
separate
day.
meeting for.
Well, let's
budget?
ask the mayor, these aren't going to be long meetings. This was only a half hour tonight. Could we attach, Mayor Gloria Bader, can we attach an extra meeting after our next meeting, board meeting?
Probably could, and that way you wouldn't have to have another night.
Okay.
it afterwards.
You want, since she can't be here on Valentine's Day, you wanna move our meeting to another day?
Well, the 14th is not Thursday, is it?
Yeah.
No,
14th is Thursday.
Oh,
Wow.
Well, could we make it another night for this instance?
Does it have to be on a Thursday?
That's what-
Like anybody else in here.
Our meeting ordinance kind of says this, we have meetings on the second Thursday of the month.
well, I'll
and then
make
we
it
need
a point to
second
make
day.
it whatever night you
But we
make
can
it.
change
Yeah,
it by
I'm-
extenuating circumstances, so, you know, and we'll, absenteeism would be extenuating circumstances. Let me grab my calendar.
Yeah,
I got nothing going
Because
on.
we could do it on a Tuesday or something. I'm good during the weekends.
I wouldn't have to worry about too many being here on Valentine's.
Yeah, I got nothing going on, so, whatever you wanna do.
You wanna do it the Wednesday before Mayor, before the Thursday, or the Tuesday before the Thursday?
That'd be a good idea, I think, a Wednesday before.
We'll do
That would
Wednesday,
be the 13th, right?
Wednesday, February the 13th?
Yes.
All right, we will move our board meeting to that time. You wanna do a regular 6 o'clock time, or you wanna move it to 5, or any changes there?
It's the mayor's meeting, 6 is fine with us.
I think 6 would be good.
6 o'clock, okay. And then do the work session after the meeting or
Af-
before?
After.
Okay.
This would be February 13th,
Yep.
correct?
So now, our meetings usually last about an hour.
Mhm.
45
So
minutes.
that'd be in the paper?
Yes.
So, and we'll try to keep our meeting to have our, so Dave, give me a call. We were talking about a spreadsheet. I don't know what kind of computer work you have, computers to work with.
But Dave, you got everything you need to know, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the only thing I don't know is like what the guys' duties are as far as water and sewer. I mean, I got a list of like, what reports they have to do, but as far as like maintenance and testing, I have no idea, you know.
Well, I think when
how
we
that
meet with
goes.
the water folks, they'll be able to.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, if the
Dave,
water guys are here, they can tell us.
It
more
wouldn't be, it
detail.
wouldn't be a bad assignment to ask those men or women what they do and have them just write it down. I mean, this is really all we need, so if it's water related, we can kind of take it out during the course of a day, a week, and of course, there's some things that happen once a month or something.
Right.
And you can do that, so ask them to write it down for you without going into too much detail.
They do write it down, don't they? Not all of it, huh?
Right, I mean,
So you ain't got a work order?
I've got like a list of things that they're supposed to do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, you know,
Yeah.
and that may suffice for what they're gonna
Okay.
do.
All right. Is there anything else? Not?
I'd like to make a motion to
Stay in the picture.
close the meeting.